Hey, Rick, we had Rebecca. How do you pronounce her last name? Come on.
Hameda.
Hameda. There you go. Good
Hameda.
job. She is a rising guru, and just talking to her is phenomenal. You can see why she is rising and rising fast. I mean, the stories she has right now are just phenomenal. I love these stories.
Yeah, she's done a lot of business.
Yes.
I mean, you're listening to her and you're like, I think she might actually be a guru. But,
yes.
She's still fairly new, so she's a rising guru and just a wonderful person.
Yes, she is. I mean, just how she got into the business and then how that business has led her to all these different situations and finding the right team for her. This is one that people should definitely listen to.
Welcome to Indy's Real Estate Gurus, your ultimate guide to the dynamic world of real estate in Indiana. And I'm Rick Ripma, your hardworking mortgage guy, and I've been in real estate and mortgages for over 24 years.
And I'm Ian Arnold, a loan officer on Rick's hardworking mortgage team, and we are both with Advisors Mortgage Group. Together, we'll empower you with expert advice, market trends, and successful stories from guru realtors and local experts.
Whether you're a homeowner, investor, or pro, join us as we navigate the thriving Indy real estate market.
Now get ready to unlock the doors of success, one episode at a time.
Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today we have Rebecca, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name because I already know it's
Hameda.
Hameda.
Yes.
I was close.
Very close.
And Rebecca, you're with the Stewart Home Group.
I am, yes.
And can you just give us a little background on what you did before real estate, where you grew up,
yes.
Kind of what your life was like?
Okay, so that's a great question because I've done just a little bit of everything. I have always lived in the Mooresville, Plainfield area, graduated from Plainfield High School, and now I currently live in Mooresville and love it. Before real estate, I've done, like I said, just about a bit of everything. I started out in the serving and bar industry. Then had a little bit of a lengthy career as a massage therapist at a pretty well-known salon and day spa downtown. After that, went to school for occupational therapy and loved working in the nursing and rehabilitation homes. I also did a clinical rotation in a locked mental health unit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that'd be interesting.
It absolutely was. Prepared me for real estate, that's for sure. So that was definitely fun for me. And then after that, I was a lunch lady. So I spent some time in the school cafeteria. That was actually before occupational therapy, as I was going to school. And then once I had my daughter, she's now 5 years old, went back to work in the rehab unit after that. And I just thought, man, it was so nice being home and having that flexibility with all the children being there too. So my husband and I sat down. It was interesting because he actually had a financial advisor come over. So I was, dabbling in the kitchen. He's like, honey, I'd like for you to sit down because this is for you. And I thought, well, that's the sweetest thing ever. You got me a date with a financial advisor. And we talked about the reality, I guess, the feasibility of me maybe starting to kind of work from home a little bit more and forgo that full-time job. So we did. We had also recently bought our second home at that time to allow room for said new daughter. And I was fascinated with the process. I liked the social aspect, the communication, the organization and the documentation and stuff like that. So I was encouraged by a good friend and who was our real estate agent at the time to pursue my real estate license. And I did. And I love it. I think that with the little bit of each thing that I've done up until this point in my life, it really gave me a great opportunity to make those connections and still be able to serve other people. So it really became quite a beautiful fit for me.
Yeah. Is it a lot different than what you thought it was going to be?
Gosh, that's a good question. It is, and it's not. So it is in the way of the flexible hours, like I said, are fantastic, but that's by no means a part-time job.
Yeah.
So it's very flexible, but when you are working, you're talking nights and weekends. You always need to be available, but you can also choose when to be available, if that makes sense. So it it is quite a bit what I thought it would be, but it's not in the realm of, I never realized how helpful it would be. You know, I come from an industry of serving with massage therapy and occupational rehab therapy, but being able to help people in such big, big ways. I hear so many real estate agents say, like, gosh, this is just so fulfilling. And it really, really is. I mean, you are helping people make some of the biggest decisions ever, and they trust you. So you're leading them and guiding them through that and making these connections with people. And that is not what I expected, but it's one of the things I love the most for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how so many people, how they get into real estate. Some of them, it's very much, we just loved real estate. You know, and others, they didn't necessarily mean to, but once they got in, they fell in love with real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely my story too. I had always been kind of interested, but I'm more of the, you know, health and biology type of lover. I love, you know, the more natural homeopathic type of routes. But, you know, it didn't seem like real estate would be my route. But now that I'm here, I'm like, gosh, this is all me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your husband's reaction? You're like, I think I want to do real estate.
Well, honestly, he supports pretty much anything.
Oh, okay.
He's like, okay, honey, whatever you want to do, you know, okay, honey, whatever you want to do. And then I started taking the tests and doing the studying and stuff like that. And he was loving the idea of me being able to stay home with the kids more, you know, because that was just such a benefit for our whole family. We now have 4 children, so we're a blended family of 6. And he was just loving that idea. And it really works well for us. So, yeah, he was definitely supportive. I'm definitely that wife that if I say, like, hey, bringing a goat home, he'd be like, all right, let me build a pen. So definitely supportive.
So I know getting started is always tough. So what did you do and what are you doing to get going and stay going?
Okay, so that's a good one. I really feel like you have to build on your communications in every single aspect, exploring every single avenue that you can in outside of the box creative ways. So in order to get started, like I said, I had the opportunity to have a couple different careers. So I was blessed enough to have clients from, you know, the lunch lady realm where they might have students, children, whatever the case may be, new people from the school system, teachers, educators, administrators, and then as well as some of the support staff as well. So that's helpful. But then with the occupational therapy, I worked in a couple nursing homes. So nursing staff, as well as some of the patients, support staff, I guess you could say, friends and family members, and then CNAs and stuff like that. Just about everybody I was able to make a connection with, but really diving into your communication. There's so many people, when you get started in real estate, they say, okay, so you need to sit down and create your sphere. And that's basically just the people that surround your daily life. Who are you going to reach out to? Who are you going to make connections with? But thinking as far as that sphere can go, and also being comfortable with connecting with those people. So when I got started, I sat down and I really reached out to every single person in my contact list. And there were some people who were like, who the heck are you? Don't text me again. And there were very much some people who were like, hey, that's really great for you. You know, so-and-so's thinking of buying or selling a house, and they want to help support you. Yep. So that was definitely how I started to grow for sure.
Yeah, I'm reading a book. It's been around for a long time, but they got an updated version called Influence. Mm-hmm. And it just happens to be, I was just reading this where they were talking about exactly what you just said, that it's the referral. There's companies that's how they work. The Tupperware is what they were talking about, is how Tupperware sold. Mm-hmm. They got rid of their contract with Target so that they could because it was very profitable, but it was affecting their at home.
Sure.
And that's how they say, you know, and they say it works because it's friends. And one of the other groups they were talking to was how well it works when you call somebody and say, hey, Jeff Smith asked me to give you a call, said that my services might.
Exactly.
And it's amazing how well that is received by most people.
It really is well received, and it can be an area of discomfort. But there's one thing, if anything, that I've learned about real estate is you're going to get into some pretty uncomfortable situations, but you grow so much through every single period of discomfort. So it can be kind of tricky for some people to be comfortable reaching out to every single person on their contact list and saying, hey, can you do me a favor? Because in a sense, that is kind of what you're doing, but not really. It's okay to just say, hey, I just got my real estate license and I would love your support. Do you know anyone who's thinking of buying or selling soon? And people are going to want to do that, as soon as you actually do it. And it's like, oh, I'm getting some great feedback here. This is okay. And it absolutely works. It really does.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that's great about real estate. It's the same with mortgages is you I think real estate's even better than mortgages, and everybody wants to talk to you about real estate.
Yes.
Who doesn't either want to buy a house, I want to sell a home, or I want to know what's going on with my house, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. No, and that's a really good point too, because one of the most important ways that you can grow yourself is to constantly talk about real estate, and not necessarily in like a braggy way, if you will, but there's so many people who's like, hey, how's the housing market going? And not only that, but talking to other agents, not everyone, but there are some agents who they almost want to be in competition with one another. And I found that is not the way, that is not the way to go. But if you can really get into great conversations with other agents, with appraisers, with mortgage brokers, inspectors, anyone that you can, and you can talk about interesting deals, what they have been through before, what they've struggled with, or, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what happened with this transaction. You can learn some really good tips and tricks and solutions too that can help you in your future for sure.
Yeah. And what they don't tell you is once you already say you're a realtor or you're in real estate, is you don't bring it up. They come to you
all the time.
And all the time. You don't have to be going, hey, just so you want to know, the market is this. No. They come to you, hey, what do you think is going on right now?
Yeah. And it comes from people that you would never expect as well. It's wonderful. My grandmother, who's 100 years old, sometimes will say, so what do you think about this that's going on? And it just gives you such an opportunity to talk with so many different people in so many ways. And everyone can make some type of connection with real estate in one way or another, even if you've never been a homeowner. That's everybody's dream and goal and desire too. So you really can communicate on every different level.
Yeah. So I do have to ask though. So when you first started getting in there and training, and did you use your kids as demo? All right, you want to come show let me show you my room.
100%. 100%. I can say that it might be slightly unprofessional in some people's opinion, but my daughter helped me sell probably, 60% of some of the houses in 1 year that I sold. She would accompany me sometimes, and oh, she's cute. And I didn't do that with every single client, but yeah, I definitely have used my children to my advantage. But and I'm not ashamed because they have very much learned from it too. It's really cool. My 16-year-old has said, I think maybe I might get my real estate license when I'm 18, and not necessarily as a career, but just something to have, so it's definitely been beneficial for the little ones, the middle-aged children, if you will, and then my oldest too, to just kind of see some of the different aspects.
So if anybody sees a kid walking around in a trash bag at an open house, it's probably your kid, right?
Yes.
Oh, I just need to hurry up and sell this house.
That's right. Mom said we get ice cream. That's right.
Kids work cheap.
Of course they do. They do. That's right.
It's because they're not inexpensive in any other way.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Well, it's interesting with your kids. So how do you balance that? How do you balance that piece of your life with real estate?
So sometimes I don't. I try to, but you really, really have to be keen on time management, and that can be a struggle. In the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle for me because in all honesty, things grew very fast for me. When I started out, it took maybe, I want to say 3 to 6 months maybe before I had my first transaction. But that first transaction was, they were a buyer and then they had to sell their property, and then it just kind of took off from there. So I dove into the documentation and listing and selling very, very quickly. But at that time, having 3 children, but they're different age ranges. It was, sometimes I would be pulling our camper on the way to going on a vacation and pull over at the gas station and write an offer on my phone and, wait until we get to an area of cell phone service, make a couple phone calls. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I do think that you have to make big on time management. And one key piece of advice that I feel like seems very simple, but is not: one thing at a time. And that can be such a simple level as well. So for example, you open up your email and you have in the morning 5 to 6 different emails just from like 3 different deals. Okay, well, we're going to work through 123 Street first in its entirety. If anything new comes in regards to that, that's going to wait. Then I'm going to handle 456 Avenue. Then we're going to take a little bit of a lunch break, and really honing in on your time management skills. You also have to be flexible and know that there's going to be some of those days where you get thrown a curveball and you just got to wait until your recruits come home and give you a little bit of relief or a break and handle things then. Because just like you said, with reaching out to friends and asking for that help or support, for the most part, your clients are human too, and they're going to know if it's like, you know what, this is a priority to me, so let me get to that by the end of the day. Or let me get to that by first thing in the morning, because I know that I want to do 5,000% my best that I can for every single client. So I'm sometimes guilty of, as soon as I'm given an issue, if you will, I'm like, okay, I have to find the answer to this. I need the solution right now. I got to get back to him. And that's a great attribute to have. But there's also nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I know that we can find a solution. How about let's reapproach this in a couple hours, and then you can really get a better answer or something like that. And all of that, I feel like, falls under time management for sure.
Yep. And I think one of the biggest things you said there was you let them know.
Yes.
So it's not, hey, problem comes in, you see it, and then you're like, in your mind, you're like, hey, I'll get back with them in about 4 hours. Well, what's that customer doing?
Yeah.
They're freaking out.
Yes.
Or you can be like, hey, look, I saw it. Hey, I'm working on this right now. I'll get back to you by 4 or 5 o'clock tonight. And so then they're like, oh, okay, they got the peace of mind that, hey, look, about 4 or 5 o'clock, you'll give me a call. We're going to figure this out.
For sure. And I do have to say that I don't want to say that I came up with that by any means.
No, you did. You did.
Okay, sure. No, I've learned that from experience for sure. I have definitely learned that, and not necessarily in the year's length of experience, but transactional experience, if you will. So there's been times where I've had a deal where I'm thinking, gosh, this appraisal has not come back yet. I've not seen a request come through for it to be ordered. What the heck is going on? And you reach out, you don't hear anything. And then finally, I may have a conversation where it's like, well, I didn't want to let you know, but we switched lenders 2 or 3 times, and then we couldn't get this person to pick up the appraisal, and A, B, C, D. And I think, all you had to do was tell me. Right. All you had to do was tell me, because if I'm able to give my seller or my buyer peace of mind, that goes a long way. And just carrying the peace throughout the transaction, I feel like, is the key. Of course, when there's a problem, I'll also say, going in hand with that, sometimes if there's a problem in the transaction, I want to make sure that I can find a solution first before bringing it to their attention. But let's put a timestamp on that, because if it's like, okay, here's problem A that's come at me in the morning, I'm going to give it an hour or two so I can, do some creative solution solving or whatever the case may be, but then definitely have that conversation for sure. So it goes both ways, because it makes you look like you're an awesome agent because you're finding solutions, but you're also communicating, so you're realistic, you're relatable, and that helps build trustworthiness for sure.
Yeah, well, since you just said you're an awesome agent, well, let's get your awesome phone number out there. So what's the best way somebody can get in touch with you? Definitely
phone. I always have my phone with me. That's one thing that my husband probably is not too keen on, but it's a fact. My phone number is 317-946-4944. Quite a bit of fours. So you can call me or you can text me. I'm a mother of 4, so I I'm always awake. I have done those deals with people who work the night shift. So I've gotten phone calls or text messages, at 11 where we're talking about accepting offers or listing properties. And sometimes I text people as well and I'll say, hey, let me know what your schedule and what your preferred availability is, because there might be a chance that I'll message you later in the evening if that's when I have work hours available after my priorities with my family. But if that's something that you're not too keen on, then let me know and we can work that out too. So I would say phone or text for sure.
I think 4 is your number. 4 kids and 4 4s in your...
There's got to be some meaning to that, right?
It has to be. It has to be.
We'll look into that for sure.
And to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com. Or you can give us a call at 317... You did the 672-1938. You did that to me on purpose. 317-672-1938.
All right. So we're going to take a sidestep, and this is going to make this conversation even funnier. I'm going to take away your phone for 24 hours.
Oh, no.
You cannot work. What do we catch you doing for fun?
Her husband just called. He's happy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's like, yes, please take it. Okay, I love this question because, first of all, I hope it would be dependent on the season, because if it were kind of warm outside, I would be outside with my kids. I love gardening. I love being barefoot in the dirt outside, digging and getting dirty with the kids, and just kind of playing in the yard. I've gotten into gardening. I have lots of indoor plants and stuff like that, so anything that can just be relaxing and outdoors is definitely my jam. Now, if it's a warm beach and no kids, that's okay too. But I'm sure as soon as I would get there, I'd be like, I wonder what everyone else is doing. So I'd still give it a shot.
Yeah. What's your favorite beach? Or do you have one?
Indian Rocks Beach in Florida, for sure. I don't want to say that out loud because then everyone else will find out about it. So we used to vacation to Anna Maria Island when I was growing up. So I wanted to take my family and children there, and we did, but it's very much a destination now. It's beautiful, of course, but it was very crowded. So my husband said, let me take you to my favorite beach. And we went to Indian Rocks Beach in Florida, and it's just so laid back, and it's not overrun with tourists. It's just the perfect place to go and relax. So don't check it out.
Well, so if you heard a little while she was saying the name, I'm sorry, people.
I know.
Now, Ian grew up in Florida.
Yeah.
So do you know where that is?
I do not know where that part is. Like,
I've been there, but I couldn't tell you directionally. I just knew I would.
I think she's not letting everybody know where it's at. That's what I'm getting from this.
I'm most definitely the person that's like, okay, so you're going to turn left by the big tree, and then it'll be next to the brown house. Yeah. So I couldn't honestly tell you which side of Florida it's on, but if it's definitely a place to visit.
Hey, your husband drives. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. I just know we're going to get there.
If you're anything like my wife, she just sleeps. I arrive when I arrive.
That's right. That's right.
That's the second person, though, we've had.
Yeah. Last one.
That love the beach they go to in Florida, and it's like what you were talking about. Not a lot of people, and it's beautiful sand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except for his, I lived like 20, 30 minutes away from it, so I knew exactly where it was.
Okay, yeah.
And it's one of my favorite beaches, too. So,
what beach was that?
It's Navarre Beach in Pensacola.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's actually rated one of the 10 best in the world.
I've heard that. I asked for some people's recommendations on beaches to visit and things like that, or just like family-friendly places to take the kids, and that was one of them for sure. I also know a real estate agent whom, interestingly, I worked with in the school cafeteria, and she went to a church that I visited as well, too. And she now lives in Florida selling real estate, and a couple properties that she has facilitated transactions for have been on, is it Navarre?
Navarre.
In Navarre. So, yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. Here soon, you'll probably be doing real estate here in Florida. It's just the way it works.
I might, yeah. It's sounding kind of nice.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm going to get back to real estate.
Sure.
And maybe not total real estate, but what would you say your superpower or superpowers are?
Okay. Well, first of all, tell me what you want, and I got it. And if not, I'll find a way to get there for sure. That's one thing that my dad always told me growing up is he was like, if you don't know the answer to the question, just figure out who to ask. But no, in all, it is for sure. That's some great advice. He's definitely a good one. So honestly, I would say tenacious grit. So I am not going to stop. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to quit. I will just keep on going and find any type of creative solution that we can to get the job done. There have been endless transactions where once it's over, we're at that closing table, documents are signed, and I'm like, I'm running. I'm out of here. Because it just seems like we have been through one thing after another, but hanging in there and trying to find any and all, again, outside of the box creative solution that you can. And a lot of that comes from exhausting your resources. And when I say exhausting them, my resources are like, oh, it's Rebecca. The phone's ringing and she's calling again. But that's just that, tenacity and that grit is you just have to keep going because there's so many agents. Ian, you touched on this earlier. That's like, they just kind of don't have the communication or there's a problem. It's like, well, I think we might just need to mutually release. And I'm like, no, hang on just a second. We still have option, LMNOP left to explore here for sure.
Most times, if everybody wants to make it work.
That's true.
Most times.
That's true.
You can make it work. Not every time, but
That's
most
true.
times, no matter what happens, if everybody wants it, most times you can get it taken care of.
I absolutely agree with that. And most times everybody does want to make it work. I think that the difference is knowing that you probably still can. Because, of course, there's that want to make it work, right? Like, why would you be doing this if you just wanted everything to foil? That'd be kind of silly. But knowing that not only that you want to make it work, but that you have to have that will to make it work. What are you willing to do? Of course, everybody has to have personal and professional boundaries, but at the same time, how much are you willing to exert yourself to get the job done?
Right.
What can you do? What can you, how far can you go to help out your client? There was, for example, one transaction, we went through everything with this one. They had a failed septic system. It was in a very rural Amish county, and it was what some people would call an illegal septic. So, of course, as soon as you hear that, any agent would be like, oh my gosh, I'm running. This is too much. We're going to have to, what are you going to do? Have the seller dig a whole new septic system? Or that's a big, big deal. So I thought, okay, I'm going to put my kids, who are super adorable, in the stroller, and we're going to drive an hour away to the Rush County Courthouse, and we're going to meet with the environmental engineer, and we're going to ask him, what can we do? Because again, like Ian said, it's that communication. That can be a deal-ending thing. But if you talk with the right people and kind of put yourself out there to make that relationship, hey, this is what we're dealing with. What can we do to make this right? They're human too. And you can really make, you can really be a trailblazer, if you will, that way for sure. It's just doing what it takes to maybe put yourself out there and find solutions for your client for sure.
Okay, so I got to know, what was the solution?
They dug a new septic.
Yeah. That's what I figured would be the solution.
They did, but the Amish are a resilient, resourceful group of people, and there is a family member that does just about every trade in the book. So it was like, you just mention, of course, I'm like sweating, thinking, gosh, this is what we're going to have to do. They're not going to like this. You bring the issue up to your seller, and he's like, okay. And then an hour or two later, here comes somebody with a backhoe. And then, the engineer is out there supervising to make sure that if this is what's happening, this is the way it needs to be done. And it was a fascinating thing to be a part of for sure. Yeah.
That is one of those things, that especially for new people or new agents in the business, that you don't want to deliver bad news. Well, you don't realize that the people might already in their mind know that this might come up. Yeah. And you also don't know what they know.
Exactly.
So, like you said, you mentioned it, you're doing all this research. Hey, what do we got to do? Why do you do this? Mm-hmm. You mentioned one little thing. He made 2 phone calls or whatever.
And
It was like, but I mean,
there we
guys
go.
showed up and it's
Yeah.
been done.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it was fascinating, but you're right. Now, on the flip side of that, another piece of advice that I got from the guy that actually helped me get into real estate, he sold me my first house and the second one too. One piece of advice that he told me as a new agent is, you know more than they do. You know, there's so many new agents who think, gosh, this is so intimidating. I have a couple of deals with someone who's a mega agent, you know, or selling millions of dollars of real estate. And how am I supposed to go toe to toe with this person on a negative inspection report or something like that? And it's like, or how am I supposed to deliver bad news to my seller, or even good news to a buyer or seller? You want to make sure that you're really coddling that relationship, if you will. And you just have to keep in mind, for the most part, in most situations, you know more than they do. Not necessarily the other agent. That's not what I mean. But as far as like clients and people who are asking you questions, you went to school. You went through the classes. Hopefully you're doing your continuing education and you are interested in real estate. So you're listening to podcasts, you're reading the articles, you're doing things like that and filling yourself with education so that you know more than the average Joe about real estate. And if you have that confidence in yourself, that's really going to show through to your clients as well and help with that for sure.
Plus, if you have a good group surrounding you,
Yes.
which you have the mentors,
Oh, yeah.
you have the ability to get the information that you need pretty quickly.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And I feel like to go along with that, you have to be willing to reach out and have those conversations. There are some real estate agents that kind of keep to themselves and they grow their own brand. And that's great. That's one thing that I love about real estate is you really truly can do what you want with it.
Right.
You know, you can grow whichever direction you want. You can get into whichever realm you want, whether that's investments or first-time home buyers or VA loans or whatever the VA buyers, whatever the case may be. But one thing that I love about the brokerage that I'm with is everybody has something to offer. There could be a new agent who's only been in real estate for 2 years, but she's selling $10 to $15 million in real estate a year. She's just fascinating. There's agents who have done several flip properties themselves, so they can advise you on the investment side. There's agents in our brokerage who are property managers as well, who, there's one group who her husband is a contractor. We have an appraiser who works with our brokerage. So there are endless resources. And as long as you're willing to just reach out, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing real estate or how many millions you have sold, just asking somebody else a question and really kind of bumping ideas off one another has been not only one of my favorite things about it, but a fantastic way to grow, is just getting so many different opinions and then thinking, I'm going to take a little of this, a little of that, and then here we go. Here's my thought. And it's really a neat thing.
So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you because they want to work with you as a real estate agent, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Phone number or text for sure. Yep.
Okay.
You can email me and I will definitely check my email for sure. I'm always checking my phone for sure. But I would say phone number or text would be the easiest way to get a hold of me.
And what's the best phone number?
317-946-4944.
Okay, the one with all the fours in it.
That's right.
So 317-946-4944.
I'm here for you.
See, there you go.
Hey,
Yeah.
you be a little cautious. People will be calling Indy Star here in a second.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. I feel like my phone number's on everything. It's like it's on your business card, it's on your online advertisements. And that's great though, because I don't have the spam blocker turned off because there might be a phone number I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know if I should answer that or not. And every time I do, it's typically somebody asking for help or asking for an opinion or a question or, hey, you want to sell my house? Yes, I do.
No, call somebody else.
Today.
Now, when you're in our type of business,
Yeah,
you just have to answer the phone.
you do.
And you just have to get good at saying, I'm not interested if it's something that you're not interested in, right?
Yes, but also doing that professionally
Yes,
as well.
nicely.
There's so many times where, you know how it is if you get like a spam call and then your significant other or teenager or something is like, hang on, my refrigerator's running, or whatever funny thing they think to say. However, real estate is a huge industry, but a small world as well. So if there's somebody who just happens to be, you know, selling insurance for John Smith Real Estate Services or something like that, if you handle that phone call personally personally and professionally, you never know, they might have a good thing to say about you the next time. Or you might see them in a transaction like, oh yeah, I think I talked to you one time when I was trying to, you know, sell insurance or something like that. So you really do have to make sure that you're staying on top of your
Or they might need to buy a house.
That's right.
Or sell a house.
That's right.
That's, you know,
or they might want to get their real estate license.
Yeah, you just never know. I know.
True.
It's amazing how that works.
You just got to you got to Uno reverse that call. They don't sell you. You turn around and sell them.
That's right.
That's right.
I had somebody call me I think it was a recruiting call or something like that, because I think it's around either the beginning of the year or the end of the year. Typically, some other agencies and brokerages, some of the big corporate ones, will look at sales and things like that, and then just kind of start making cold calls. Hey, have you ever considered joining this team or this brokerage? And one time somebody called me and I'm like, you know, I think I worked a transaction with you this past year. Do you remember that one? Oh yeah, that went really well. And I'm like, so I'm thinking of joining a team. Or I think I'm thinking about creating a team, excuse me. And then, you know, they're like, wait a minute, this isn't how this phone call is supposed to go. We were trying to recruit you. And I'm like, well, if you're looking for a great brokerage, mine's the place to be at.
Yeah. They aren't going to recruit you, so they might as well at least listen, right?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
That's right. I'm staying where I'm at.
That's right.
All right. So let's get into the question of the week.
Okay.
What was your first car?
Oh, it was a 1986 Chevy Celebrity with the bench seats.
You are the second person within the last couple of weeks that have had that same car.
Really? Yeah. It
Maybe
was a
different
great
year,
car.
but still the same
There's
car.
a popular car.
The Chevy Celebrity, was it? Probably
Not
like
really.
It's like, I don't know. I drove it.
They were one of the first front-wheel drives, if I remember right. They were.
I'm not for sure on that one.
I'm not sure either. My sister and I, we shared it. We're about 18 months apart in age.
Oh, okay.
So when we got our license, you know, around the same time, we shared that car.
Do you have good memories of that car?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Now, what's the your favorite car that you've ever had?
Oh, gosh.
The mom van.
The one that I have right now, I actually just recently traded in my brand new Kia Telluride for my mom van. And just because we needed slidey doors and more space. After I had my fourth child, I was like, you know what? I'm buying myself a gift for myself. You know, I'm going to get myself a Kia Telluride. It's what I've always wanted. And I loved it. I really did. But you know, I got 4 kids, and when they have their friends over, or their gears or all their sports gear and whatnot, so we traded it in, and now I have the classic mom van with the screens. And sometimes I'm driving this thing, and I'm like, man, this is nice. I never in my teens and 20s would think I would ever say that, but here I am, and I love it.
Because Rick and I were both in car industry. It's interesting. People hate the minivan, but as soon as they had one, they found out how practical and how much use it becomes.
It's so true, Ian. It is so true. And I've had so many people tell me that. Even people now who maybe their children are grown and not in the home anymore, and they're still driving their van. They're like, well, I just love it. It's just such a great, such a great vehicle. You can lay the seats down and have the bed space of like a pickup or an SUV, and it just works for my life. And that's where I'm at right now, is just embracing anything and everything that is going to make my life easier.
It's funny because my wife had a vans forever.
Yeah.
And she couldn't wait. She's got a pickup truck now. She drives an Avalanche. And that's what,
Good for her.
She's had probably one for 10 years. She just was done with vans.
That's right.
She wanted to, because the kids were older, she didn't need it anymore.
She was ready to upgrade for herself.
Not a sports car.
Just wait until she gets more grandkids, and then she's like,
Right.
"I need a ride with all these kids." Rick, we need a minivan.
I don't think we'll ever have that many grand. We have one, and if we have a few more, it'll be a miracle. One set of our kids is never. They say they're not going to have kids. We have 3 boys, but you never know.
Yep.
You know how people
I have
are.
3 boys too.
Yeah.
You never know. It's just like when you're a young parent, you think my kids will never drink anything but milk, juice, and water. And you're like, here, take this and hush.
That first one is funny when people,
Yes.
how they, you want to be the perfect parent.
Of course
and
you do.
everything
Yes.
perfectly. And then
you have 4 and you realize being the perfect parent is survival.
that's right. And it isn't about that.
No. Yeah.
It's just about taking care of your kids and being there and caring.
The support and your presence.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. And, it's not that much different now that I think of it than real estate.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you have to do with your clients,
Just
right?
have to be present. You have to be realistic. You got to be there for them, answer their questions, and provide for their needs.
Yep.
That's basically it.
Give them milk, juice, and water.
That's right. And if they're fussy,
right.
here's a soda. Shh.
So what are you really excited about in your business right now?
Oh, I love this. I'm super excited about the prospect of potentially creating a team. I started on a team. Now I am an independent agent still for the same brokerage, but I have considered growing a team for myself. I definitely don't envision a large, group of individuals. That I don't think that would, I would do it if I were asked, but that wouldn't be something that I would envision for myself. But I think it sounds like a cliche, but having a couple like-minded people to kind of be a close-knit, not necessarily, of course it would be a team, but not branded as that, just a group of professionals, I want to be able to help and educate and advise. There's been so many things that I've been through in my real estate transactional history that I think, I hate to say it, but you could learn from my mistakes. You could also learn from a lot of the positives, that I've been through. But just like I had mentioned earlier that we spoke about being able to bounce those ideas off one another, whether it's a brand new agent or someone who's been in the business for a while but maybe considering putting their license in referral status, like, no, let's just get together and see what we can do to help one another out, because I really think that's what it would be about. I'm at a place in my career where I'm helping with a lot of listings, and that's something that I really love to do. And if there's a couple buyers or somebody that comes my way, I would love to be able to kind of work that hand in hand with someone whose personality that I just really click with. They don't have to be identical to me because I think that would be a nightmare. But I think that having a group of professionals that really kind of click together, that would really be a cool thing for me. So I'm getting kind of excited about that for sure.
All right.
It's one of my yearly goals.
So you hinted at one of mine,
Okay.
one of my favorite questions, especially for newer agents, because
Okay.
we've all been at jobs and the first few transactions, we all make mistakes. Let's be honest.
Yes.
I want to hear a mistake you made.
Well, this would be in reference to the very first, and I am not ashamed because I learned from it. In the very first house that I sold, I didn't ask. They wanted their closing costs paid for, and I didn't write that in the offer. So then once they got their offer accepted, I'm like, oh my gosh, congratulations, and we're going over everything, and they're like, wait a minute, so they're paying our closing costs, right? And I'm like, what? Sure. But luckily, I mentioned I did start on a team, and it was really beneficial to have a person that could kind of help navigate those waters. The list agent on that transaction, I still try and communicate with her every now and then. And she's just a phenomenal person. She is not that kind of agent that is, this is a competition or a shark, if you will. Well, too bad, so sad. You should have asked. She's like, well, I don't think anyone has ever asked this of me before, but let me see if that's something that my seller would be willing to do, is, accept that after the fact. And luckily they were. So I've definitely never done that since then. That's something that I always try and make sure is clear. Yes, for sure. Post-possession, I think, would be another one. And that was an interesting thing that we dealt with a lot in 2021 and 22 as well, when everything was crazy and people were doing absolutely anything possible to make a house their own. People would give what's called post-possession. So if you're unfamiliar with that, that's where you buy the house and you're willing to let the seller who sold it to you stay there for X amount of time and maybe move their belongings out into their new home before you're able to get keys. So I wrote something in the purchase agreement, buyer is willing to give seller 10 days of post-possession. And then it was a day or so before closing where that agent came to me and she said, so when should we expect that check for $500 at closing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? The post-possession check. And I thought, wait, what? And then I looked closer at the purchase agreement, and it was the first time. She was a great agent. She had her stuff together, but this is why you have to know your documentation. There is a line in there that says for like X amount per day that the buyer would need to pay the seller for that post-possession. And I'm like, oh, she got me. No, it was nothing personal, of course. I didn't realize that was a thing. So now that's something that if I am representing a buyer and we're offering that, I will put, buyer is offering seller 5 additional days post-possession at no additional cost to the buyer. And you have to put that in there, because one thing with documentation is anything that you don't negate, if you will, or you don't talk about, you're accepting by default.
Right.
So I've also seen that on the sell side. If we're accepting an offer and, they submit an offer and it says something about post-possession, and the reason why I do this is because that lady at my very first transaction was nice enough to ask her seller if they would, in fact, pay for the closing costs. And I remember that. I'm like, gosh, she really went out on a limb for me. So if I am accepting an offer on behalf of my seller, and they've put post-possession in there, I'll always mention to that agent, now make sure that if your person is not wanting to pay this, that you put in the further conditions, you're offering post-possession at no additional cost to seller. Because otherwise, according to line whatever it is on the purchase agreement, your people are going to have to pay about $100 a day. And I've had several agents who are like, oh, I didn't realize that. Thank you. I'm like, yep, I didn't either. I'm telling you because I got burnt, and I hope you don't. So, yeah. Yeah,
great. And we're running out of time, but I want to hear this I want to hear this story on this farm that you sold.
Okay. That had to do with the illegal septic. Are you speaking about
was it the same one?
Yes. We went through every single issue that you could have with a transaction during that transaction. It was also my favorite. It was with an Amish-owned farm in a town called Milroy in Rush County, Indiana. So interestingly, the seller was the son of a person named Solomon Wiki, who is known to be a faith healer. When I first heard this, I thought, okay, sure. And then I looked it up online, and it's legit. The Indiana Attorney General actually came after him in the 80s for, these healing practices. And it's a fascinating story. So anyway, I was the list agent on that house. It was for sale for a while before it found its new owner. But it was so interesting because the Amish, of course, don't utilize electricity. There's little to no electronic communication. And it's very much you are going out and getting a wet signature on something, which is, don't click here on DocLoop or DocuSign. So there was one instance where we had been under contract and then they mutually released. And part of the reason why was because it was set up for electricity, but there was no line running to the main power. So that was something that the seller was willing to pay for, of course, but it gave some potential buyers cold feet. So anyhow, we finally had a great offer, and I, myself, and Mrs. Seller definitely wanted to accept this offer, but Mr. Seller had an idea in his mind of what he wanted to profit from that. So anyway, it was very cold. And it was supposed to snow. Everyone was, stocking up on their French toast supplies and toilet paper at the grocery store. And I had X amount of time, I think it was about 24 hours, to accept this offer. So I drove an hour away to this Amish farm, and it was about 8 o'clock at night. And I told my husband, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. I hope you got the kids, but I'm going to sell this house. It's time. So I went out to this farm, and I sat down with them, and I talked to Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and then they decided to just discuss, and they started speaking in this. Amish people have a language. It's a Germanic language. I think it's either Pennsylvania Dutch or High German, but I'm not sure which one it is. But it's a very distinct and different Germanic language. So then they start discussing amongst themselves, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and I'm not watching TV. I'm not doing much of anything. So I walk over and I sit at their kitchen table, and one of their daughters came over and she was like, "You want some deer jerky?" I'm like, "Sure." So I'm just sitting there kind of munching on their snacks while they're discussing. And they did end up and accept the offer, but we went through just about everything with that. And when it came to the listing contract, the Amish they very much keep to themselves, and it takes a specific amount of time to kind of get into their culture, if you will, their community. So when it came to the listing contract, I went over to the house, I brought my whole family, and we sat down and we had dinner together and we talked and we got to know them. And it was a 3 or 4 hour ordeal. And then I got a signed listing contract. And anytime there was a counter offer and an inspection, you go out, you sit down, you take a visit. One of the daughters would take my daughter on pony rides, and it was by far my most difficult but favorite transaction. I helped shovel manure out of the barn one time because that was something on an inspection. There was some biologic waste, and I thought, well, let's get rid of it. So we definitely went through about.
I always
hated
hated that job. We had horses, and I hated that job.
Everybody should hate that job.
That's a terrible job.
Yeah, but
Mucking the stalls.
There wasn't anybody else who was going to do it, and I thought, well, let's get in there.
I'm just surprised somebody complained being a barn.
Yeah.
I mean, if you said the house, I'm like, okay, I got you. But as soon as you say barn,
right.
And one of the Amish guys, it was so funny. He was one of the sons that was helping us. There was a whole lot that went into that transaction. There was an instance where I believe that one of the purchasers wanted to get a little bit of a discount on price and stuff like that. So that was something that was brought up. Well, one of the sons of the seller was like, well, I don't know why they're complaining about this. I just put it on top of my garden and I'm excited about it. He's like, that's some good stuff there. So.
All right. So it's the last time I ask you, and you've done much better than Rick has with your phone number and everything. So
that's normal.
If somebody's listening to this, they want to, they're looking to buy, sell, or if they're a part of the Amish community, since you're in there now, and they're listening to this, how will they get in touch with you?
Definitely phone call or text. My phone number is 317-946-4944, and you can get a hold of me just about any time.
And if you're Amish, send smoke signals.
Yeah.
I don't think they do that.
No. So they can't use phones. Or not supposed to.
Not supposed to.
Yeah.
Not supposed to. Yeah.
But I see them in Cracker Barrel and everything, and somehow they got there. So
I know it's such an interesting dynamic once you really dive into the community. It's just like any faith-based group. There's things that you're not technically supposed to do, but some do, some don't, and it's fascinating for sure.
And to get a hold of Ian or I, go to hardworkingmortgageguys.com. That's hardworkingmortgageguys.com. Or you can give us a call at 317-672-1938. It's 317-672-1938. And please follow us for more Indies Real Estate Gurus.
A reminder, if you have any friends, family, or coworkers looking to buy, sell, refinance, let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you. Hey, Rebecca, thank you for joining us on our show.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Thank you.
I loved your stories.
Thank you.
Branch NMLS number 33041. Rick Ripma's NMLS number 6645889. Arnold NMLS number is 1995469. Equal housing opportunity. Some restrictions apply.